Welcome back to the 99, where we are focused on brewing a better competitive commander. I'm your host, Patrick Marlette, and today we are continuing our Hidden Gems videos, but this time in green, as you can tell by the lights behind me. Gang, I have some tasty morsels for you today, but before I jump into this video, I do want to mention our partner, TCG Player. If any of these cards I mentioned today titillate you, whet your appetite, well, I encourage you to purchase them through the link in the description, because in doing so, you will be helping out the channel. Thank you very much. And gang, if you want to support the channel more directly, you can do so via the support button in Anchor. This is now a podcast, as well as the Patreon page. Now, there's going to be a link in the description for that as well. But guys, thank you so much to all of our early patrons. As you all know, I'll be thanking you at the end of this video, each one of you, until we hit 99. And I believe we're at 34 or 35 as of recording this. But before you throw your money at us, gang, and there's no tier system there, you're all equally favorable in my eyes. Before you throw any money at us, I want you all to know, if you are in an industry affected by COVID-19, please do not concern yourself with the channel, my health, the group's health. Don't worry about it. Take care of yourself, your family, your friends. Worry about them first. And if you have anything to spare, we really do appreciate it here. But that's pretty much going to do it for us today, so far as announcements are concerned. I'm pretty excited to jump into this video, as there are a few cards in here I'm sure you might have heard of, but are certainly underplayed, and hopefully some cards in here you've never heard of. And to start us off, it's one of my favorite cards. By the way, Phil Foglio, amazing art. This is a very Freakazoid-esque art. I don't know if this was before or after Freakazoid. I think this was before Freakazoid. And if you guys know what I'm talking about, if you're a 90s kid, well, congratulations. But the first card I want to mention is Avoid Fate. So to the listener, it is a green and instant speed spell, counter target instant or aura spell that targets a permanent you control. Now, there are two printings of this card, so it's a little bit more of a rarity. And the thing is, we see a lot of counter spells outside of blue. The most common ones are, at least in my play group, Red Elemental Blast, Pyroblast, maybe a Guttural Response. But the thing is, there are more spells to be worried about than blue spells, and particularly if you're in a list that's playing fast combo and or your permanents matter. So the first thing to look at here, and that's really piquing my interest as a player and why I include it in so many of my list, is that it counters an instant, instant that targets a permanent you control. Not a creature, not an enchantment, not any particular permanent, but a permanent indeed. So whatever permanent is part of your winning game plan, if they're trying to remove it, it will be stopped. And mind you, there aren't that many sorcery speed spells that I can think of that people use to single target remove things. The only things I can think of that are sorcery speed for removal are Toxic Deluge, Pyroclasm, but then again, those things don't target, so Avoid Fate was never really going to do anything about that. However, for the most part, this is covering all your bases. Any of your Swords to Plowshare, your Pongify, and so far as auras are concerned, I can only think of so many that I see. Darksteel Mutation, Kenner's Transformation, but there are some chance auras that will hit the field that you can thwart with Avoid Fate. But again, this is going to hit mostly everything that you'll be seeing. Again, a Braid, if you have an artifact-based strategy, that's another common one in red. This card is fantastic at countering those spells, especially at its low cost of 1 green. Now, mind you, we're talking about green in general, so we're not going to be talking about any cards like Selesnya or Gruul in particular. So any green card we mentioned today might not be best for your list if you are on a multicolored list. A monocolored list, these are definitely cards you should consider. Anything outside of that, it's going to depend on what your deck is doing, particularly this next card I want to mention, it being Sylvan Safekeeper. Now, you're going to notice a trend with these first 3 cards I mentioned. They're all in the protection range, is what I'm calling these. Cards that are there to help protect your board state. And again, if you're using a creature-based strategy, particularly, Sylvan Safekeeper is fantastic. So this is one you've definitely might have heard of, but is certainly underplayed in a majority of lists. I see it in Yisan, I'll see it in Gitrog every now and then. But Sylvan Safekeeper is 1 green for a creature human wizard, 1/1 body. Sacrifice a land, target creature you control gains Shroud until the end of turn. Now, it means it can't be targeted by spells or abilities to include yourself. So it's not hexproof, not that good, but it's still phenomenal in the list that can use it. So I would recommend this for any fast combo list Once you've gotten the resources allocated and you don't need your lands anymore, it's okay to burn them to protect the creature if it means your safety. Particularly in something like Gitrog, it's gonna be okay. I mean, I think we use squandered resources in Gitrog anyways. You're burning those lands regardless. But what I like about it is that it feels like a double-edged sword in that you get the protection, but you lose the access to a land. But mind you, you're in green, so you have the Ramanap Archivist Excavator, the guy who plays lands from your graveyard. You're likely on Crucible as well. You might have a few lands you want to play from your graveyard anyways. Maybe you're in Gruul, you have Ren and 6, so burning the lands isn't going to be a bad thing. But maybe you're in Gitrog and you're considering this, but don't know if you want to burn the land. Use it. Definitely use it. Particularly because your lands, when they're on the battlefield, it's generally the safest place for them to be. You don't want them in your deck, you don't want them in your hand. If I can play Dakmar Salvage safely and sacrifice it on a whim to this guy to start the trigger and get the loop going, that sounds like a good deal to me. If I have Riftstone Portal, say I'm playing Selesnya, this is a really easy way to put it into our graveyard. And guys, if you don't know, it's on the screen now, but Riftstone Portal, if it's in your graveyard, your lands can tap for Selesnya. Maybe you're on Drownyard Temple. There's a recurable land for you to abuse with this guy. But even if you're not recurring lands or abusing lands in any particular fashion, you're getting to protect your creature. And that's all I really have to say about this guy. It's fantastic, especially because it's super easy to tutor in most all scenarios. Anytime you have a Green Sun Zenith, if you put 1 into that X, you'll get a fantastic way to protect your creatures. It's definitely underplayed. There's a good reason it's underplayed, because people are a little worried about, they're a little cautious about their lands. The gang, build for it, play for it, you'll be fine. Particularly if you're fast combo, it's a good part of the strategy. And the last card I want to talk about, it's a staple in Selvala Heart of the Wild. So if you followed our primer here, my particular primer on the Stampede, I'm not calling it Brostorm, it's very similar in fashion, but we want to attack with all of our creatures. So one of the things that really propels us forward is Vines of Vastwood. Vines of Vastwood is extremely interesting in that it's usually used to solely buff a creature in Selvala. And, you know, for 2 mana, you get +4/+4, and the added benefit of protecting that creature from your opponent. So, for 1 green, instant speed, has a kicker of a green. Target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. I'm going to read that again. Target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. If Vines of Vastwood was kicked, that creature gets +4/+4 until the end of turn. So, target creature. Doesn't have to be a creature you control. I can target any creature with this effect. So if I don't know, maybe I know my opponent will get too much value if his Gilded Drake takes that person's Zur. I can say that Zur can't be the target of spells or abilities this turn. Your Gilded Drake just whiffs. Now that's a chance scenario, but the benefit here is that you can use Vines of Vastwood on anything, and it's asymmetrical. So I can still kill the thing if I want to by the end of this turn, but no matter what the scenario is, for 1 green, I can say no one gets to touch that thing. You can stifle someone before they combo out. So I don't know if it's some sort of curiosity build and you want to enchant your creature. No, stop trying to enchant your creature with your Ophidian Eye, with your curiosity. Stop. I don't want to see that. Put it in your graveyard instead. Vines of Vastwood has so much added utility outside of the fact that it simply buffs a creature. And again, in Selvala, that's just a way to say, I get more mana this turn when I tap. So on the flip side here, yeah, you can kick it and give your thing +4/+4. So outside of making creatures outside of your own untargetable by your opponents, you can just buff a creature and trade and or just straight up kill one of your opponent's creatures. And Vines of Vastwood actually works very well with another card we'll be talking about later in our interaction suite for the video. And by the way, if you're following along on the YouTube video, you can look at all these cards. I'll leave a link in the comments section. I'll pin a comment with all of these cards so you can search them up later. But I'll encourage you to check that out if you want to follow along. Vines of Vastwood, horribly underplayed in my opinion. I think it's a fantastic card outside of its utility in a Selvala Heart of the Wilds list. And the next card I want to talk about, we're going to jump into Tutors now. I've got some Tutors for you. This is one I think is horribly underrated, underplayed. You'll use cards like Sylvan Tutor, you'll use cards like Imperial Seal to get that thing you need for your game plan. But my sole philosophy is if a tutor can benefit you in enacting a win, it is a worthwhile tutor to play, even if it's just one tutor for one card in your list. However, if the tutor can hit multiple things, even if that thing it's grabbing isn't necessarily a win con, it's still a valuable tutor. So the first thing I want to talk about is Treefolk Harbinger. It is 1 green for a Treefolk Druid 0/3 creature. When Treefolk Harbinger comes into play, you may search your library for a Treefolk or Forest card. Reveal it, and shuffle your library, put that card on top. So one, start with the baseline value here. Without the tutor effect, it's just a really good blocker. It doesn't say defender. You can still attack with it. You can do things with it outside of it being a decent blocker, but on its base level, it's just a 0/3 blocker for most instances. So what can you grab with it? Well, I personally like using this for Lignify if I want to just stop an opponent who's going much quicker than me from doing the thing. Let's just say Zur again. I'll Lignify the Zur. I'll turn your guy into a Treefolk as well. Or I can grab Feyborrow Elder. We know how important Feyborrow Elder is in a list like Marath now. There's certain, I know Justin's working on a Tulane list. I'm pretty sure I've seen a Feyborrow Elder there. There's a lot of pod lists that use Feyborrow Elder to ramp out. It's a fantastic card that you need. Or how about Great Oak Guardian? A lot of plans rely on the mass untap, mass damage accruing ability of Great Oak Guardian. It's a fantastic card that will benefit you in that way. And there's more things you can use with it. You can grab, if you have an Undying combo in your list and you have Machias, so in this instance you would be in Golgari, you can snag your Woodfall Primus, you can snag your Wickerburrow Elder. There's a ton of Treefolk, is what I'm saying, that you can grab with this guy. And furthermore, you don't just have to grab a Treefolk, you can grab a Changeling, who is every creature type. So the big one that comes to mind for me there is Mirror Entity. And Mirror Entity is used in a lot of combo lines, everywhere from Atla Palani to just a Wirewood Symbiote line. And Mirror Entity is a 2 generic, 1 white creature shapeshifter Changeling. Every creature type. It's on the screen now, but if you don't know what it does, it has the ability of X until the end of turn. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XS and gain all creature types XS, XX. So there's plenty of utilities you can grab with it. If any of the things I mentioned seems interesting to you and or is part of your winning package, Treefolk Harbinger should be considered. And on the off chance that you can't find, you pulled all the Treefolks by drawing them out of your deck, you don't have any more Treefolks that you need to grab, well, grab your Savannah. Grab a Dryad Arbor. Grab a land of any forest type. It doesn't need to be a basic forest. It can just be any forest. And to be honest to me, if that means I can just pad out my draws and hit the mana when I need it, that's also very good. Or hit the color when I need it. Again, if you're in a multicolored list, this will grab that Forest X card for you. It's really good. I certainly don't think it gets played often enough, and I'm a huge fan of it and all the lists I run it in, particularly Servala, Heart of the Wild. It's just a knockout success in that list. The next card I want to talk about that is a tutor. And another one that doesn't see much play is Traverse the Ulvenwald. You're not always going to get there, but if your deck gets there, it's worth considering. Green, sorcery speed. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Why the hell are you mentioning that, Pat? That sounds like just an okay card. Hold up. Delirium. If there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, instead search your library for a creature or land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So it bumps you up from basic land to any land, and also adds creature to the mix. This is such an oddity. It needs a very particular list to play well. Obviously, Dredge might be a part of your package. You might be using a lot of things that mill yourself. That's the deck that this is going to see the most play in. Base level, I mean, if you need to hit a basic land in a multicolored list, or if you're just lacking it in your monocolored list, this is going to get you there. Like, I wouldn't feel like I need to hold on to this for the Delirium if I needed to hit my land for that turn, or even if my starting hand just had 1 land and it could play Traverse the Ulvenwald, but it was a greedy and good hand for a fast combo list, well then maybe I'll still keep that hand. Although I'd probably want to keep a hand with 2 lands in this. Regardless, if your list gets to Delirium easy, Traverse the Ulvenwald's fantastic. And certainly one you should be on the lookout for. They're like dirt cheap for the most part. I think they're like $2 to $3 at most. And again, this is non-foil version, but keep your eyes out for that. Again, if you find your graveyard is littered with multiple types of spells and hits Delirium easy, consider Traverse the Ulvenwald, because putting a creature into your hand or a land into your hand is one better than the top of your deck and not better than putting it on the field. Now, the last one I want to talk about here is one that gets outshined all the time, and just because of the soul nature that it's own a creature. And you'll know what I'm talking about as soon as I read the name off, but Fauna Shaman. This is not a hidden gem, not necessarily. We've certainly heard of it, we certainly play it, especially if we're on budget. But Fauna Shaman is survival of the fittest. It's a slower survival of the fittest. But for 1 generic, 1 green, creature elf shaman, 2/2 body, pay a green, tap it, discard a creature card, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So, why doesn't this get played often enough? Because it says tap in its cost. Mind you, if you use a list that is haste enabling, this is, in my opinion, just as good as your survival of the fittest. I know a lot of budget players will whip this one out if they lack that creature tutor. But if you're in a strategy that utilizes a lot of creatures, and I'll say a lot in this instance would be 22 and up, and your strategy revolves around creatures, there's no reason you shouldn't add Fauna Shaman to the list. Mid to late game, dorks are good, but an Arbor Elf turning into a Great Oak Guardian is even better. Or an Arbor Elf turning into a Tamir Sabertooth, even better. Or let's just say you're in Gruul, a Dockside Extortionist, even better. You get any creature with this effect, and for the most part, folks aren't going to be bothered using the removal on this. You never really stop the tutor, so having the 2/2 Elf Shaman body on the field is always beneficial, especially if you're in a list that relies on elves or the elf component. So Priest of Titania is the big one that comes to mind in cEDH. You always want to hit a certain cap of elves to get the most out of your priest. Fauna Shaman's just another one on the field, and that's something I can't say for survival of the fittest. And what's interesting is that from the threat evaluation standpoint, survival is usually the one, it gets hated very, very easily because it's instant in nature. But Fauna Shaman, you play it, most folks forget about it, and it sticks around. Unless there's a Clasm or something to remove it, people don't generally care about Fauna Shaman, and I don't know what the dichotomy is there between those two plays, but for the most part, if you're playing Survival of the Fittest on curve, it's not like you're going to be doing much with it. I will highly recommend that if you have a Reanimator strategy, Fauna Shaman is a must. If you rely on your creatures as a part of your win con, Fauna Shaman is a definite must. I really love it. And she can't get taken out by this next card we're going to mention. The next card I want to talk about, and the next 3 I'll be mentioning to close out this video, are interactions. So I've got some juicy ones here, I think. One card that I believe it's only had 1 printing, and mind you, it's not as good as its older brother, but it's damned good in and of itself. And that card is Natural State. No Nature's Claim, but very, very good. So for 1 green, instant speed, destroy target artifact or enchantment with a converted mana cost of 3 or less. So you're not gonna hit the Bolas's Citadel, okay? You're not gonna hit some of those bigger cards. And when Necropotence hits the field, you can hit that, but generally speaking, it's probably too late by that point. But for the most part, most of the other artifacts and enchantments I can think about that are going to be damning are 3 and under. So things like your Blood Moon, things like your Back to Basics, and your dorks can help you play this out to get them. Any sort of value pieces your opponents might have. You got your Sylvan Library out, you don't want them to have their Sylvan Library, hit it with a Natural State. This card is really phenomenal in most all situations. I can see why it would be underutilized in a list that has multiple colors. For the most part, you're probably going to stick with your Nature's Claim over this, but if you do find yourself in a list that has a lot of faults in how it performs, like you know that a Cursed Totem is going to bring you down, you know that a Stony Silence is going to bring you down, and you need the added redundancy of a Natural State, I highly encourage you to pick this one up. The only other thing that I think operates on this level that is in the 1 CMC slot is Sorcery Speed, Fragmentize, and White. But instant speed removal, always the best way to go for the most part. Natural State is a fantastic card to add, especially if you, again, need that little bit of removal. Now, the next card I want to talk about is going to rely on you just having big dumb creatures and or not minding to trade every once in a while. And that is Ulvenwald Tracker. Another Ulvenwald card. Look at that. I didn't even realize that. Creature Human Shaman, 1/1 body. Generic green, tap it. Target creature you control fights another target creature. So you're going to throw this thing down. It's going to sit there for a minute. That's okay. When it's able to activate for 2 mana, if you've got the big thing, you have the thing that's big, whatever creature-based threat at instant speed, you can remove it. Obviously, I think the scenario we're all mostly concerned about from creatures these days is the Thassa's Oracle hitting. You can't stop that per se, but any other creature that is going to hurt your strategy, like, I don't know, a Drannith Magistrate, any other creature that is going to effectively win on your opponent's turn, I don't know, your folks, the Najeela out there, the other Savala out there, whatever the case, Ulvenwald Tracker is going to be able to slam that thing with one of your creatures. Ideally, your commander, that's a creature you're always going to have out. And if your commander is at least a 3/3 vanilla, if it's able to get there at 3, it's going to kill most things or trade with most things. Ulvenwald Tracker is a valuable piece of removal in that, at least in green, we have so many ways to find creatures. So if you are lacking removal in a list, this is a way to repeatedly remove things based on your strategy. Again, if you have big dumb creatures out, this is a good one. I don't use it in my Savala Heart of the Wilds list. I could encourage you to use it in yours. If you're playing a more mid-range build, this is a good card to have out because you've got big dumb creatures galore in that list. And there's no reason you wouldn't want to destroy your opponent's stuff. And speaking of Gilded Drake again, I can think of the scenarios where the Drake lands, you can just kill the thing that's about to steal, and then the Drake whiffs. Or you can just kill the Drake in response. Ulvenwald Tracker's phenomenal, and definitely underplayed. It's just one of those cards, another cheap card at that. I'm pretty sure this is like under $1 to pick up. And the last card I want to mention, I do want to state, we've had some really good recommendations for these Hidden Gems videos. I've received a few messages on it, what we'd like to see moving forward. I think I might take a break to talk specifically on lands because I'm a huge proponent of utility lands. Of all the cards in Magic's history, lands are definitely the ones that are least abused, least used, and honestly forgotten in most all scenarios. We care about our dual lands, we care about our fetch lands, we care about a handful of lands like Ancient Tomb and our rainbow lands to get us our colors, but so far as utilities are concerned, folks often neglect these. And one that I see over-neglected all the time is Yavimaya Hollow. There's no reason you shouldn't be playing this card if you can get away with having at least one land that taps for a generic. This is the one card you should put in your list. Most all strategies rely on a creature to some extent to get the ball rolling, and Yavimaya Hollow helps you consistently get there. So, legendary land, you can tap it for one generic, or for a green, tap it, regenerate target creature. So it's only not going to help in a scenario where your thing is exiled. Most of the exile things I can think about will bring your thing back. Like your Grasp of Fate, it's going to bring it back. That's okay. But again, Swords to Plowshare might be the big one that is all on our mind, and maybe there's another player that uses Path to Exile in that same list. That might be the only thing that stops you from getting it back. But if that creature would be destroyed this turn, you can regenerate it. So if you rely, in your decks in green, if you rely on your creature-based strategies, why not protect it with Yavimaya Hollow? This card is a little expensive, I will have to say, if you're budgetizing. I think on the low end, it's maybe like 25 to 30. Don't look into buying a foil from Urza's Destiny. I want one. It's fantastic, but so far as interaction is concerned, you can crop rotate this into play and save your Savala Heart of the Wilds on the spot, and you're going to have the mana to tap for Yavimaya Hollow in that list. if your list relies on its creature doing the thing, you should really consider Yavimaya Hollow, particularly if it's your commander that you're so dependent on. And if your commander, it doesn't matter if your commander's tapped or untapped, because Regenerate will bring it back tapped, then why the hell aren't you on Yavimaya Hollow? Again, one of those long-forgotten cards, one of those underplayed cards, in my opinion. There's certainly a lot of lists I've seen where it's like, oh, you rely on that Gitrog? You should probably have Yavimaya Hollow. I think you can afford the green to go towards this. Again, the one generic tap. You only want so many of these in your list, but I think it's a firm consideration above a lot of other lands you could be weighing against it. So definitely consider Yavimaya Hollow. Now, gang, those are all the hidden gems in green I want to discuss today. Green gets a lot of love. I have to say it is definitely one of the better colors in Magic's history so far, as the effects it's been receiving as of late and the effects it's had throughout its history. A lot of things are strictly played, I have to say, but these are the cards I see least often in gamer groups or decks these could slot into, and they're just not in. Yavimaya Hollow is one of the big ones in my opinion. It's certainly a land that should be taken more seriously, especially if you're in mono green. Run Yavimaya Hollow. But gang, are there any other cards that you feel like I could have mentioned in green we can talk about in a further video down the line? And of course, cards outside of green. If there are some utility lands you love, cards in blue, red, and black, which we haven't gotten to. But I intend to go over all the colors and of course repeat the series as we move on with new cards that you all bring up. I'd love to hear what lists you're running these cards in. If any of these cards are in list that you run, let me know how you utilize them. And of course, if there's any cards here that you've never heard of, like Avoid Fate, well, you're welcome. Why not have a counterspell in green? That's going to protect your permanent. But gang, again, if you want to pick up these cards, I'll encourage you to do so in the link in the description. That is the best way to help the channel and of course help yourself. So please, please foil that Yavimaya Hollow there. And again, if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so via Patreon. And at this point, I think it's time to pay tribute to our Patreon members. 34 at this point. Thank you, thank you, thank you, by the way. Every Patreon member, all of you guys, super active on the Discord, super active on the Patreon channel. I really do appreciate all of your help. But you're going to hear a personalized thanks in just a moment. Dang. I will try to speed through these today. I usually dick around to some extent. But Adrian, thank you so much. Alex, thank you. Allie, you're the best. Jarn, thank you so much. Brendan, double pistols. Bruno Philippe, rocket launcher. Burden, samurai sword. You can't tell. Carl, you're the best. Just a finger point. Clyde, finger wag. You know why. That's not true. You don't know why. You've done nothing wrong. Frank, frankly, Gulius, Jake, Jared, Jason, Javier, Scar, Mufasa today. Feeling like a good guy. Mace, Jordan, Josh, Kev, Leon, I love you all. Luke, that last name, man. Every time I see it, I think of Doctor Strange. Mason, Mahoy Manoy, Nathan, Nick, Oliver, Paul, Running Red, Sam, Shade, Shord, The Holy Knight, and Zhao Fan. I hope I didn't mispronounce your name, but Zhao Fan. Thank you guys so much for your support. It really does mean the world here. I did mention in the Bling Flex channel of our Discord, shout out to our own Discord, that I just bought a new tripod to help with a future segment on the channel. That's all thanks to you guys, honestly. You don't know where the money goes, but there you go. It paid for most of the tripod. But all of it really does go to help support the content creation here, and I really appreciate you guys so much. Again, more than you know, it benefits this work so much. So thank you again. I'm actually filming on the tripod right now. It's not necessary for this shoot, but thank you so much, guys. Again, I hope you enjoyed this segment. I'm looking forward to shooting many more. My name is Patrick Marlette, and happy brewing, babies.